Trying to live stream. Got it.
Mr. Crack Spider. Nice web, 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 Mr. Crack Spider. The web structure was unaffected. Bug Spider, Mr. Crack Spider. Nice web, Mr. Crack Spider. The web structure was unaffected. The spider can't go within 100 centimeters of the web. The spider can't go within 100 centimeters of the web. The spider can't go within 100 centimeters of the web. The spider built a web, found a mate, and raised over 100 young. But the mate got a restraining order, and now the spider can't go within 100 centimeters of the web. The spider built a web, found a mate, and raised over... The crack cocaine spider figured building webs was for socket. Waited till the caffeine spider was exhausted. Caffeine spider.
Crack Spider.
As the crack spider.
Did you ever hear that entire song play out?
I have. I love it. I've listened to it on purpose before. I was like, this is cool, Crack Spider. I'm into it.
It's 3 minutes and 19 seconds of goodness.
Definitely a grimy beats.
Makes me want new intro music pretty bad. I already
Yeah.
did though.
So this is the public call to musicians everywhere listening now.
I'll pay even. Let's talk.
This is a paying
But I want you to
opportunity.
want to do it. I want you to want to do it.
You need
Yeah.
theme music? Chance?
Yeah, I would love some new. I actually would love to have a ton of music for the show and have just rotating songs that were all like in the spirit of whatever the hell it is I do.
That'd be cool.
Like the
Alan, do you
Higher Side
wanna-
Chats, he's got all these cool parody songs. He's like a whole library of them.
Oh, right. Yeah. Alan, would you like to introduce Chance for folks?
I was on Chance's show one time. How did that go, Chance? How would you say that went?
My whole screen froze up. I missed the whole thing.
Right now?
So,
Did you break
Yeah.
it?
but we're good now. Now it's back. So if you introduced me, you must have done fine. You know, I feel like I'm honorary spider. We talk all the time.
That's
Yeah,
true.
you're one of the spiders for sure.
I got a spider tattoo, yo.
Yeah, look at that.
Nice.
See, it's like brotherhood. We should
It's like it's
spider
one of three
tattoos.
tattoos that I have, you know. So it's like it's not like I have a bunch.
I'm gonna tweet this.
That's cool.
What's up, everybody in the chat?
Hey guys, we've got Stella Moon in the chat.
Spider, we guys talk.
Occult Priestess.
Don't
How's it
go.
going?
Cool,
Ordo
Corinne in the
Abigail.
house. She's the person who first told me about your channel, singing your praises.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hmm.
That's very cool. She's definitely cool.
Occult Priestess. Does she have a channel? Do you have a channel?
She's on Rockford now too.
Yeah, I think I may have just like stumbled onto that like yesterday. On Rockfin.
It's a tangled web.
It is. This thing is bringing crazy people together, like amazing connections to people like Chance, like you and Johnny and Cheney. We're gonna have Cheney on. Like this network that kind of all leads to Lindsay, like, is pretty amazing. Honestly, I feel honored to be part of like this kind of brain power, you know, like this kind of understanding that we're all kind of on this thing. I don't know how else to call it, but
Chapel
like,
Perilous, I'd
just
call it.
cosmic understanding, you know, like we all want to ask the deepest questions, you know.
Yeah, it's just the only thing that entertains me.
Right? I like normal conversation just bores me to tears, and I can't do it with. I did it all day yesterday with another elementary school employee, and it was like somebody was pulling my beard hairs out or something, like somebody's pulling nose hairs. I'm like, that's faking it, you know? Like, oh God, I need human interaction. We aren't afraid
Through a screen. I'd
like
rather
through a
have
screen that
through a
I would
screen.
rather do this than talk about the bullshit that people have to deal
What,
with.
sports ball isn't it fun?
Oh.
Super sports ball, Japan edition. You know, funny story. I just heard. Okay, so if you want a good, entertaining show as a way to kind of get the news that you're going to get anyway, but at least laugh while you're doing it, Media Monarchy. Been super into that lately. He also has this guy. His name is James Evan Plato. He does a show with Corbett every Thursday too. New World next week, but on this Media Monarchy, it's like your classic shock jock radio DJ type of style, but not annoying, actually funny. And he was talking about the Tokyo Olympics and all the different SJW meltdowns that they're having over there. Like a guy had to resign from the committee and apologize publicly because of a 1993 interview he did in a small, unimportant magazine where he said he admitted that in high school in the 70s or something, he had bullied differently abled people.
Oh, right.
I saw
heard
that
this.
story.
So like,
I shared that story on Reddit, and
Yeah, I think it was you.
so funny.
That's crazy. Like you knew this was going to be a mess. Like,
but
behind
they're
the
making
scenes,
it's like they're cannibals. They're just
has to
making the
be-
mess as bad as possible.
just a train wreck. It's got to be behind the scenes.
I'm already confused because is this Tokyo Olympics 2020? Is that the official title of this?
Yeah, for the episode. But
See, the music
this-
festivals that got canceled that I had tickets to in 2020, they're calling it 2021. So I don't think we can go back to 2020 unless it's the Olympics. Maybe that's something that the Olympian gods are allowing.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a
On
lot. Like,
Twitter, it's telling me what's happening, and it's all Tokyo 2020. It's all hashtag 2020 Tokyo Olympics.
Well, what's that mean? Why do they want us to keep thinking about 2020?
It's the past. I don't
Mhm.
understand. I think I don't know. It's some weird,
2020 vision.
maybe like time ritual or something. I don't
Tokyo
understand.
in gematria equals 22 in reverse gematria, but still, I think that counts.
Interesting.
Never know what fun you'll have when you just pop up the gematria calculator and type a word in. It's like divination, and when you're drawing a card, you know what card you're about to draw. It's like, I knew this was going to have some 22 in it. And there it was.
I'm really starting to understand that. Like I couldn't understand how tarot works, but what's opening me up is using Lindsay's book, the All Beginnings or All Endings Are Beginnings. Like, because we've been doing the kind of bibliomancy with that thing, and
Right.
it's amazing. Like, it's just because it calls to you, whatever that is, it just calls
love
to
me
you,
some
and it's
divination.
right. It's right every single time. Like Snake Jones, back me up, dude. We were talking about something in the chat, and he pulled it out again, and it nailed it.
If we're talking bibliomancy,
Please
let's
do.
talk about the book.
Oh yeah, there you go. So this one is the one I'm talking about. Sharman, All Beginnings.
What's it called?
All beginnings are, or all endings are beginnings.
Ah,
That's
are those like birds on the?
They're feathers over waves.
Oh, okay, I see.
I got a copy myself. Not a physical, but it's pretty sweet. It reminds me of the poet Gibran, kind of like this mystical oneness feeling that comes through a lot of them.
Mm.
That'd be like a cool book to just stumble upon in an ancient bookshelf 150 years from now.
Yeah, because it does have kind of that feel of like Rumi or something. Like, or that
Alan's raring to get into the never-ending story, guys. I feel like
some
we
of
should.
the. Oh yeah,
we should
you gotta hit that.
give it to him. I mean, I am too, for that matter. I
Chomping
need to
at the
get my
bit. I'm
copy out and
sorry.
make sure there's nothing I marked up that I might need to reference later.
Okay.
You're talking about
My
occult bookstores, and that's how the never-ending story begins. It begins in an occult bookstore.
So my relationship to this is that I could not stand the movie when I was a kid. It was the acting was terrible. I couldn't stand the puppets because I was just a little too old, I think.
Right.
I was just off that so it was baby stuff to me, because I was probably, I don't know, maybe getting into high school. When year did that come out?
When were you in high school?
Oh, hey, no. You answer first. You answer first. When did it come out?
The movie?
Yeah.
In Germany or in English in America?
You guys all know how old I am. I graduated in 89.
Right.
Anyway, so I missed it.
1984, according to
There you go. Yeah. So
my quick Google
I was
search.
a freshman, and I didn't give it a chance. But I understand, hearing Lindsay talk about it all the time. It's
Well, for everyone
got
out there,
all
the
sorts
first
of
thing to know about the
mythology
movie is that it's about 1/3 of the book, and it's a compressed 1/3 in terms of how far it goes through the plot. So I believe like my Kindle version at the point where the movie would have ended was like 33%, 30%
There you
into the
have it.
book. So
Yeah. So the thing you need to know about this book is that it's written by a German author and translated into English. There it says on the cover by Ralph Manheim. So the English translation, the novel was first published in 1979, and the first English translation in America was published in 1983. The rights to the movie were picked up by Warner Brothers, and the guy who did that submarine movie ended up getting to direct this film. And Michael Ende, the German guy, basically says he disowned the movie. He wasn't a fan of it. So
it could be
That
one of
all-
those things where you just do a bad adaptation to keep people away from the source material.
they made too many changes, and he was not happy with it. And they did not cover the entire story. So people go in and they watch the movie and they see Lamal singing his silly song with his silly haircut.
Oh, hey,
And
by the way, I'm related to that guy, supposedly. Did I tell you that?
you're related to Lamal,
Yeah.
Limahl.
Yeah.
Lamal.
His name is Chris Hamill.
Who's Lamal?
Lamal, the Kajagoogoo guy that sang the Never Ending Story
You
theme.
shy.
So
Yeah.
Alan, I want to know what you think about Moonchild. The why. Why is that the name of the childlike empress
Why does Bastian
from Bastion? He never
why does
justifies many of the
Bastian
names he creates
call
throughout the
out a
story.
name? Yeah, in
Yeah,
the
I know
movie, it's
only a
very
little bit
it's
about this.
very
That has some
vague.
Crowleyan connotation for sure.
The Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, what do you know about this? What are your thoughts about that particular link?
I
feel
haven't
like-
read the Aleister Crowley novel.
Diary
not
of a
familiar
Drug
with that.
Fiend has the book Moonchild.
Yes, that's where people get the name, but that's not the
I just picked that book up actually. From the
Diary
app.
of a Drug Fiend.
Yeah. Looking forward to checking it out.
The other connection to Thelema is the do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. And how does that come into the never-ending story?
It's all about, I think the deepest thing thematically in the whole story is that if you don't wish the right wishes, first of all, that your wishes are going to come true. Second of all, that your wishes come from a mysterious source that is hard to, you really don't control it. Thirdly, the wrong wishes will eventually lead you emptied out, hollow. If you wish for something that is against your true nature, you'll find yourself with less of yourself. And the more empty you become, the more easily other forces external can manipulate that, your wishing ability. Super deep. I get it all. Did I get that right, Alan? What do you think?
That's yeah, so again, when you've seen the movie and you've maybe seen the sequel to the movie, the second one where Bastion is played by a different actor and you meet Zaid.
Look, that sounds like a
She's in the book.
mistake.
She's in the book. The third film has Jack Black in it and has
What?
nothing to do with the
Seriously?
book. Yeah.
Oh no, that's a terrible idea.
Jack Black just did something. Kyle Gass did something.
Yes,
We
that's
just
right.
saw
Something
Oh,
horrible?
yeah. Wasn't it
a
you that
Ramones
shared it?
parody.
The Ramones parody from Kyle Gass. Oh my God. Like, was
Oh, whoever it is that
awful.
does that song, like Back That Ass Up, he did one too. And it's vax that ass up or something like that.
Like, what is the
It's all
mentality of
over.
people that are watching this and being swayed? Like, what is like the demographic they're going for? Because is everybody that dumb? I mean, are we all really the population that poor off that that's going to sway people? That's amazing. They're not even trying hard, like to like make a song.
Well, they're counting on the star power to just, they don't need to actually do anything creative. I don't
Thank
know.
God. Thank God they're not putting any intent into it, any artfulness to it, or might actually sway somebody.
You know, I always thought that it was one of the first traumas. You know, when Atreyu's horse dies, it was a terrible trauma, and like I remember it kind of scarred me. Like, yay, he's got this horse, and then you know, it just like gets killed right in front of him.
In the movie, the horse is magically restored to him. In the book, it's never made clear whether or not that happened. I kind of think maybe he didn't get it back in the book. That's my sense.
The swamps of sadness are where he loses Artax.
The Swamp of Sorrows.
Yeah.
It's definitely that hero's journey thing, right? Like the trauma opens him up to having to go through the trauma instead of like going around the trauma. He has to go through the trials to have his eyes opened, right? Isn't that kind of the
It
gist?
was initiatory.
Yeah, definitely an initiatory thing.
It like kicked everything off, and then the turtle shows up like right after that, right? Wise old mountain of a turtle.
Yeah, Atreyu had to learn the
the
woo way.
One.
He had to learn how to do the whole effortless action or not non-choosing in a way.
That's the surrender right there.
Yeah, the
In
surrender
meditation,
power.
like the getting yourself out of the way. That's the surrender
getting into
power,
the flow.
man. That's amazing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's something addressed to kids would actually have something like that, you know?
Yeah, it's super deep and not really just for kids book.
Clearly.
I wish I had read it as a kid.
Me too.
I got enjoyment out of it far beyond the fact that it's rated family rating or whatever. There's some very scary, frightening concepts in there too. I mean, the nothing, that concept is brilliant. The void, what is the void? In a way that was actually where Bastian's entire hero's journey begins, is in the nothing. The fact that the nothing existed is why he had to enter Fantasia or Fantastica, depending on which one you want to call it. And then, so I've been really fascinated with the concept of that, looking at the dark of light and dark and getting to grips with the fact that it's not that the shadow comes from light so much as the light is actually coming from the darkness, like that the darkness precedes the light. And we kind of look at darkness as just being the absence of the light, and in a sense that that's the primary thing, primary medium. But the light is more of a perturbation of the void or of the darkness or the universal medium. That's kind of what I've been pondering lately. And it helps to get a non-judgmental perspective on all the insane stuff we see in the world and other people's experiences of it that might not match my experience of it, and allowing for the multiplicity of worldviews and models, and just seeking to help people come to one that's more whole and healed, and not necessarily needing to be the one, or that there can only be one.
Well, yeah, and without the nothing, then the story's already been told. And so it's kind of nice to have a blank slate and room to imagine, a new story. Because
You
I
can look at
mean,
the universe as a black page with white ink and a story being written on it until it becomes totally white. And then you switch to black ink and write on the white paper a whole new story. The sign, some cool metaphor for this
that would be
sine
awesome.
wave in an informational sense. Gordy and Alan, they both go to the little men's room together.
It looks like it. It's a good it's a good way to go, for protection. It's nice to have the buddy system for sure.
Help each other with their hair.
Yeah, I think that's what they do in there.
So how's it going, man? This is our first time getting to really talk in this type
Yeah.
of way.
I'm doing good. Doing good. Kind of was working out in the sun today for a while, so that was fun.
Dude, I think it's because I ate some dessert last night that maybe didn't agree with me or what, but it's just been a low energy day today. Or maybe it's because I've been in the sun so much. Maybe I got a little dehydrated. I don't know. I mean, I'm feeling good now. I always get into more of a flow state as soon as the conversations start popping, but all day I was just like trying to figure out what I could do to get my energy right. And like at one point I went and laid outside in the sun and grounding, with my feet and hands touching the ground, and just kind of try to take a little sun bathing nap. And I had my eyes covered, but then after I got up, I was like blind for hours. It's like my vision was way worse for several hours. It only got better a little bit ago. So I don't know if that was from the sun that happened or what, but it was just like a weird day. I don't know if it has to do with the Chiron stuff going on, but I keep getting hurt, like strange random injuries, cuts and slashes and shards of glass, and a dog accidentally gets you jumping on you, or all these different things. It's like I got a lot of leaks in my aura right now, and I wonder what that's symbolic of.
What are you
That's
seeing?
just
Any
in
of
the air.
wildfire smoke?
What's that?
The wildfire smoke.
Then we don't really have it here. Although in some of the worst times of the so-called wild fires, the smoke did actually reach all the way out here. I'm in
The past
Missouri.
few days in Minnesota.
Oh, you're in
been
Missouri.
It
terrible.
just can't be
Oh.
wildfires here because it's humid as hell. It's just like swimming when you go outside,
Yeah,
even when it's hot.
the monsoons have been really nice here, like crazy. We haven't had monsoons for a couple of years, and just now, like it's finally kind of getting back to normal. I don't know if that's
Are you in Arizona?
yes. I'm in Tucson.
Cool.
And,
So
well,
you've
outside of it, but
validate what Mitch has been talking about.
exactly, that's what I was going to say. Is that whatever? I don't know the correlation causation thing, but it's been much better the last 2 years and this year particularly.
Well, how I see it now, and I really like, I've always seen it this way, but I really like but for all the things I don't love so much about Robert Anton Wilson, who Alan introduced me to, got me reading, I do like the concept that whatever the thing is that your chapel perilous, your imagination is using as a vehicle to give you an opportunity for transformation, doesn't have to be verifiably true or false. Just go with it. So like for us, if we want to consider that the weather in our personal experience is better because of the orgone work, I think that that's helpful for us in the transformation of the way we feel about the world and about life, which is the thing that actually has to happen. You got to love who you are and the life you have to get your greatest wish, which is the ability to love others. And that's like the never ending story, deepest message, probably.
Absolutely. And we create this. We are the creator creating those connections.
Reality is illusory. and we do create our own connections, I think. And that's why people can't agree on what the shape of the earth is, or what, you know, everybody has a different experience, and it's all true. It's all real.
But it always comes back to love every single time.
Our reality tunnels right now are under attack and under siege from every possible angle.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. My wife and I were talking to a friend, yeah, just yesterday, and she was talking about she's in Nashville, and she's having terrible stuff go on about. We were just talking about all these horror stories about people losing their jobs because of COVID, and not getting the vaccine and needing their papers. You know, like it's getting bad out there, man. I
It's
hate
pretty chill
like
here. Pretty
I
chill.
hate it's chill here too. I hate to focus on it, but I get paranoid if I don't like voice some stuff some of those times. Like
What I noticed is
it's rough.
everywhere is hiring because nobody wants to stop being on unemployment that is on it. That's interesting.
It's
Yeah, it's all,
important. It's important that we are clear when we talk about reality. Occult Priestess raises a very excellent point about natural law being set in stone, the Hermetic principles. All of these ideas are firm in reality. We're talking more along the lines of the language that shapes our reality and the confusion of definitions that influences our reality.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I had to stop looking at the chat because it was slowing down my Zoom, but I wanted to address that point too because it's easy to confuse things into a fully relativistic model. But being able to look at things through multiple meta models would mean that you would look at some things relativistically and other things more solidly. And really, I'm totally down with the deepest form of natural law, or the simplest, easiest way to define it is just like love itself, as Gordy was on with.
Right. So then, love and empathy, how do we become more empathic? And that's through viewing the world through their own eyes in the best that we can, through their own reality tunnel, through their own experiences, and actively listening to them to try and understand why they see the world the way they do.
Yeah, not being dismissive of that. And realizing that even the reality tunnels of people that are in the deepest programming and brainwashing, typically, even they think that their actions and their beliefs are motivated by good or love. And so that, of course, there are specific on purpose vampires out there. That's a different story, but it definitely will help all these divisions and separations to congeal in a more healthy mix, the less judgmental we are of those that are on a different part of the ladder.
I have a very real example of that happened to me this week. Chance knows what I'm talking about. Gordon knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, tell us if
Yeah.
you're up for it.
Yeah, I think
Are you okay?
I yeah, it's quite difficult because of people's perspectives and trying to
Hmm.
understand exactly what is going on. So I can't be vague anymore. I have to be very specific. My father needed to go to the hospital to receive an IV to become hydrated because he was working outside and came home on Tuesday, kind of hobbled in at around noon and was really dehydrated. And I drove him to the bank to cash his check, and we went to the pharmacy to buy some Pedialyte and stuff to try and see that he could improve on his own. And that was on Tuesday. Wednesday he was home and resting all day and was not showing any signs of improvement. And the last thing we wanted to do was have to deal with the medical mafia. So Thursday morning, he was not showing signs of improvement, and was beginning to show signs of delirium. And at that point, we needed to get him into the ER to have them connect him to the IV. And he has not been to the hospital in such a long time that they didn't really even have records. He didn't have a physician to see. So we couldn't call in and schedule a physician visit because he didn't really have
Crazy.
one.
Yeah,
So
and then you got all that mess of the paperwork and all that stuff. That was crazy. And then so it ends up so he's in the hospital still, correct? And
he is there overnight. So I can show you the actual documents.
He's being treated
I walked in
alone, right? He's alone.
He's in quarantine. Yeah. So my sister drove us, and the three of us walked in, and we didn't have masks. So the first thing is they give us masks, and they tell us to, with our hands, the hand sanitizer, and that's fine. And then we have to, and they're like, does he need a wheelchair? We're like, he's fine. He can walk. He can sit down. And we show the medical card, and we try to get him registered. And about the security guard approaches the three of us. We're sitting in our designated area in the waiting room, and the security guard tells us that actually 3 people were too many, and that only one person could stay with him. So I said I would stay. I got the patient's bill of rights. They asked, do you want a patient's bill of rights? I said, yes, please. So then I get this bill of rights, and I'm like, okay, why is there so much paperwork? And then I sit down, and then the woman comes out, and she's like, it's been more than 5 years, and we asked that they sign a general consent form for treating. So she brings out this piece of paper with his name printed on it. And I'm like, why is there a general consent for service form? Why does it have his name on it? And she's like, oh, I can get you a different one. I'm like, I need to read this first. I need to read this and then agree to sign this. Like, I'm not signing it because I'm not the patient, but my father is, and he is not in any condition to be signing any paperwork right now. So after 10 minutes, after I read it, I'm like, okay, I need a pen. I don't have a pen to sign this. And she's like, well, actually, we just, you don't need to worry about that anymore. So why was this a big deal anyway? And this is about 20 minutes into our waiting room session. And then because I have the timer running on my phone, and after like 45 to 50 minutes, a nurse comes out in a full hazmat suit, wearing a thick mask like this and a face shield.
Were they doing this kind of stuff, 2 weeks ago? I wonder, because they haven't been that militant in, I don't know, man. Like, is this because?
What state are you in, Alan?
Minnesota.
Never go full retard.
It's amazing.
It's the University of Minnesota system that's taken over this.
Right. That's right. Oh, yes. That's what the point was. Yeah. Banner Health here in Tucson has taken over well, U of A has taken over Banner Health, and people are being terminated right and left over there because they won't get their vaccine. They're terminating them.
Minnesota.
And it seems like it's all at the hospitals that are run by universities.
Correct. So the nurse comes out and she mispronounces his name. Brion. How do you mispronounce the name Brian? And then we walk, and before we can get to the door, because this is the emergency room, and we basically just say, you know, we don't consent to anything other than an IV right now is what we're asking for. And she explains to me that it's not her policy, it's the corporate policy, that before anything can be done, consent to a nasal swab test is required. I could not follow him in, because he would need to be tested. And what I don't know why this was. I said, I am his caregiver, I'm his son, and I need to be with him. And they separated us at the last possible moment, and possibly because I didn't sign this and he didn't sign this form. That was on Thursday, and today is Saturday. So Thursday, Friday, tonight is Saturday. This would be his
We've
third
been
night.
in, yeah, like he's been in for 72 hours so far.
Yeah. Yep.
I just want to know why these universities want life to be harder.
Right?
It felt like a prison.
On the University of Minnesota page on the About Us, it says, we prepare students to meet the great challenges facing our state, our nation, and our world. That's the mentality, is like basically the whole point of the university system is to instill the worldview of your world is broken, which is basically the mirror for I'm broken, creates that entire mentality.
I think we've addressed, I know Jim and I have talked about it before. You too. It was you, Alan, that called it out. It's the Fabian Society. Who runs the academia? It's a Fabian Society.
Yep. And, you know, when you start looking at some of these universities, it gets really weird, the history of like, well, why do certain ones have these just unbelievable architectures to them? How come, like the story of Harvard, for example, I'm not going to be able to like give dates or numbers, but I will be able to paraphrase the story of the history of Harvard and if you look up some of the buildings there, they're just absolutely ridiculous architecture. Like the people don't build or can't build that way today. But for just a very small handful of like Puritan villagers, it was decided that it would be needed to have a school that big. It was built under the assumption that they would probably need it. That's even the official story. And anyway, it doesn't fit. None of the narrative fits on where that stuff comes from. So it seems like to me, it's probably like seized. Goes back. A lot of these major universities do have Vatican connections. I think that the buildings were just seized and set up to be exactly what they still are now, but the network just got bigger and they built more of them. Even in Missouri, where I went to college, the University of Missouri, which is in Columbia, Missouri. Familiar with that name, Columbia?
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
So,
that's the Statue of Liberty.
There's a whole weird backstory to that place where, first of all, if you look up the oldest pictures of the university, the architecture is radically like large and intense for what it really needed to be back then. And then the original very massive structure that was there was mysteriously destroyed in a fire. So all that's left of what was the presumably like old world, previous civilization architecture is just these 4 columns, and they left the columns in the quad of the main area of the university permanently, but the building they were attached to is gone. But these are massive columns that look like, just straight out of what is called ancient Greece in Columbia, ISIS's city. It's very weird. So I think the more I was in Denver, I was seeing this exact type of stuff in Denver earlier this year. Since I opened up to reconsidering architecture and just taking a closer look and then looking up the story of a place, it is nonstop barrel of laughs. I'll tell you that.
Isn't that amazing? I was thinking, I don't know if it was you or your Innerverse or somebody else was talking about the degrees of universities of why your bachelor degree is, or you have to have a master's degree, and how academia is basically run like a secret society, how you have to have your levels and your degrees, and it's the same kind of formation. Was it a guest of yours?
I don't know if I got into that in any of my shows, but it's something I've thought about, no doubt. I mean, I wore the black robe with the cube hat whenever I graduated. I'm glad though.
Yeah, I did too.
What? I actually had a pretty good turnout from college. I went there thinking I was going to do journalism school because Mizzou, as it's known, University of Missouri, is like one of the top spots in the nation for cranking out Clinton News Network anchors and other big cable media personalities and local news regurgitators and all that. It's like a super great school for becoming a shill. And I got kicked out of journalism school because all I did my first year was play World of Warcraft. So it turned out good for me because I wound up getting an English major where I learned, and also a film studies minor. And I got really good at symbolic literacy through analyzing literature and film. And then that just took me off into like a Jungian interpretation of my waking life, the way you would a dream. And then Interchapel Perilous, Synchronicity Storm, Bing Bang Boom. Now here we are weaving spider webs.
How old were you when you had that opening? Like, was that your awakening kind of? Like
in college, like learning symbolic literacy?
Yeah.
Not at all.
Or was that, were you always into that?
The beginning of it was there. Like I had a cool professor whose class was called Writing the Spiritual Journey. And he just made you write essays about what you think about spiritual questions or metaphysical questions. No wrong answers. You just got to do it. Including you could just say, I don't believe in anything. And I got the Zeitgeist movie, the first Zeitgeist movie when I was 18 or 17. And so that was when spirituality fell off a cliff for me and died, crashed and burned. I was like, this is all a scam. And I just rejected everything until the point of this class, which was like my junior year, maybe senior year in college, that got me to start asking those questions to myself again. And then after that, the questions just kept creeping back in, even after.
Was one of your textbooks The Writer's
that was
Journey?
Maybe the beginning of a journey, but it was all very tame back then. I was still pretty locked into like a reductionist way of looking at things.
The Christopher Vogler novel, or the Christopher Vogler textbook, The Writer's Journey, Mythic Structure for Writers. Did you have to read that one?
I don't know if I read that one. I did actually. My emphasis as an English major was creative writing. So I read books like that, perhaps.
I had a film class, and one of the books that we had to read was The Writer's Journey, Mythic Structure for Writers by Christopher Vogler. And that's where I got into Carl Jung by way of this Christopher Vogler, who was talking about this writer's journey going off onto the hero's journey.
I don't remember when I started getting into Jung. I think I was like seeing memes or something like in the 2000s or something, just hearing whispers or whatever. And then like existential crisis happens in your life and you're like, oh my God, Jung, somebody
Joseph
who
Campbell.
Understands something. Yeah, Joseph Campbell, man.
The PBS special, Bill Moyer.
One thing that was
Yeah.
good for me was a book called Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud, because
Yes.
I took a bunch of classes
Have you
where
talked about
graphic
this
novels
before?
were maybe a long time ago I've talked about it, but some teachers I had in college got me into the graphic novels, and that led me into stuff like the really wild cosmic Marvel Starlin stuff.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
that actually was part of a stepping stone to awakening, like reawakening my knowledge of myself as an artist that I had buried sometime in my teenage years. Little
Yeah,
stepping
man, that
stones.
those Doctor Strange comics were amazing at introducing the mysterious, the spiritual realm, that there are many realms, you know, like they were.
What I like too is just learning the visual language, either in film or in comics, because it's always playing on us at all times. Like, even though we don't necessarily consciously think about it, just the angle of a camera, the way the lighting falls, all that stuff, we've been trained from our time with the screens to take a certain, and to a degree, it's like a natural archetypal thing. You know, if the shot is below the person looking up at them, they seem powerful. That's just natural because it puts you in a perspective of being smaller than them or below them. But just coming into a better awareness of visual language is super helpful for like seeing more deeply, connecting to your intuition. I will always think that psychic powers are really just paying attention on more levels of your senses at once, because the signs of what's going on are always present at all times. It's just like, how much are we paying attention?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's all there if we could just get there to get it, you know. And the only way to do that is get out of ourselves.
Well,
That's
not
the
out of
trick.
ourselves, but out of our filters, maybe.
Out of our
Our
filters, but
beliefs
our
are where paying attention flees the scene.
Do you guys
Because
yeah,
remember the
or
first
maybe more
time?
in ourselves.
Do you guys remember the first time you became aware that you were having presentient dreams?
Hmm. I think I must have been a kid.
8 or
I was
9 years old.
I was like in
yeah.
second grade, and
I would
there
be
was this
about
other
8.
kid, and we were looking at Where's Waldo books. We had like a reading time, so we were looking at Where's Waldo books, and we started talking about presentient dreams, in which we were dreaming about finding Waldo,
Huh.
and we're like, and now we're here finding Waldo, and we both had this dream previously, and now we're living it.
Well, Snake Jones just did that. He was talking about he had a dream that we were all going to meet up at a Red Fang show, and then Red Fang is playing October 23rd. And Jim, are you going to be able to come down?
Yeah, I got tickets.
That's
I'll
this
be
is
there.
going to be great. That's going to
Yeah,
be really fun.
it's gonna be awesome.
Nice
Come on,
one,
Chance.
Snake Jones.
Yeah,
Where
you
But
is
should.
like all the way to Arizona?
everybody's welcome. I mean, it's
I think
yeah,
Snake's in
it'd be
Missouri,
fun.
by the way, which is where
Yeah,
I'm
he's
at.
in
So
Missouri.
yeah.
You guys should come down. I was thinking maybe is there a place to camp?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
That would be
My
Yeah, we
fun.
can
first
figure out.
pre prescient dream, right, was
Yeah.
a pretty startling one, because I had the dream and then the thing happened immediately. I was in the car. It was late at night. I was like probably 8 years old. We had gone to my grandmother's house, and now we were ferrying her back to my parents' house because she was going to stay the night and be babysitter the next day. And in the car, I had a dream. I fell asleep in the car, and I had a dream of her sitting on the couch at my parents' house with a very specific, like very proper posture, with her hands laid across her knees. And she asked me a specific question that now I can't even remember. But basically, as soon as I got home, that exact scene with her in the exact posture, saying the exact stuff, happened right then. I was like, I literally just had this dream. And what was weird is I don't remember. All I remember is that happened, but I can't even remember my own reaction to it. I think my mind
Hmm.
was had to have been really blown if I still stick in my mind with that memory. But it's weird how memory works. You know, you don't have the beginning or middle, you just, or the end, you just have like this snippet in the middle.
Do you have missing memory? Any that you know of?
I would say that generally stuff in my childhood is not that easy to remember unless something prompts me to remember it. But if I sat down and tried to like write the story of my childhood, I would remember a lot of specific stuff. But I'm mostly pretty focused in the here and now. There's like so much information always going through my field. It's hard to hold on to and access consciously some of those memories that aren't super relevant anymore. But you do get like blasts from the past sometimes. I had a moment a couple of weeks back where I was, for some reason, I decided to listen to my band that I was in when I was in high school. I was like 16 and 17 and 18. And we had made an album. And my thinking was that it was going to be really shitty. And it was kind of shitty. But listening to it from the perspective of like my 32-year-old self and considering that this was a bunch of teenagers, I had a really different experience of listening to it than the many years ago when I last allowed myself to listen to it.
Yeah.
And then that gave me a whole realization of that for a long time, my story about 18-year-old or 17-year-old Chance was that he was a dumbass, shithead, and idiot. And I was always repeating that and just kind of jokingly saying that. And then I realized I was like, now as an adult, thinking about that teenager, looking at other teenagers I know in the world, he actually was pretty cool. Like there's a lot to love about him and he was a great kid and trying. He just didn't have a lot of information and experience and had some bad programming, but like intentions were good and very aligned with my current self's intentions, which was just to create the things I loved with the people that I loved. Right. And the trauma of our band breaking up from us all going different ways manifested like for college. We all went to different schools. That trauma, I had never allowed myself to realize that that was trauma and that it was actually why I stopped playing guitar very much for most of my 20s. It wasn't because I didn't want to keep playing guitar, keep playing music. It was because I needed to create a story for myself and basically separate that version of myself, of who I was back then, put it in a box and keep it stored away so I wouldn't think about how sad it was that for me that the band broke up when I loved it so much. And so in that box was also the I'm a musician label or, you know, self-belief. And so I stayed in that box for a really long time. And it was a huge like reckoning in my mind where I had an actual integration of an ego state, you'd call it, or like a fragment or a soul retrieval type of thing, where I actually like found and showed love to the version of myself who was 17 or 18 that I had like pushed away from myself. So I think that there's more of that in my childhood to still like uncover and find. I think it's a long process, but we probably all have those things. And it's really, for me, what's profound is that now in the process of it happening, I have like this whole mental scaffolding of what's happening. And I can be like, oh, this is good. I'm catching it. And I can like make it more intentional and think about it more deeply and not let just like the momentary resurfacing of a memory of trauma to dip down below the waves again, right? But actually grab that self and pull them back up onto the boat and give them, you know, a blanket or whatever.
Yeah, that's tough getting there though, you know, getting to that point again. That's sometimes that's the hardest part is to like face that. Like when you find it, because once you get over something, you're like, oh, there's something worse behind that. Oh, wonderful. Oh, how great. Like these are these cosmic lessons that keep happening. Like that there's always a growth. Like if we stop growing, I guess that's what's happening out there where people aren't thinking for themselves. They're not even trying to grow. so they don't look at their past with like to see themselves as who they were then. Like my wife is really good about reminding me, remember who you were then. You know, remember you should have more empathy for that person, you know, because I would do that too, like beat myself up over stupid shit or something I'd done or some group I was involved with. And it's like, just remember who you were then. Like,
Yeah, and
kind
even
of
my
rolls
thinking of,
around.
teenager me was a shithead was not accurate to the reality of my. I think that's part of what sealed the memories up, was that my story of my history was not in alignment with the reality of it, because in that time period back
Mhm.
then, I actually loved my life and I liked myself and I wasn't depressed or anxious. Like it was a pretty good time. I had a good life back then. So
Yeah.
it doesn't line up, because my later self had new values and had changed a lot in positive growth directions. That was actually part of a double-edged sword effect, where it then made me lock up the old version of myself and say he was shitty and forget those times, because they were,
Mhm.
not exactly what I would do now. Now I'm just like, that's part of my story and it's all good.
Yeah. It makes you appreciate your lessons.
Yeah, and Krista in the chat is saying she's imagined giving herself a hug, her child self a hug, and being kind to yourself as a child. It's really a helpful practice, like big energy moving practice.
That's kind of what I'm thinking about right now, is if I had a message that I could send back in time to myself at some point in the past, if I had one opportunity and one message, and if I could inject that into my previous timeline, what would I say to myself, and when would I say it?
And what is it?
I don't have the answer yet. I'm still thinking.
I mean, 1984 and go back. Hey, go buy Apple stock, stupid.
Maybe.
That's what 99% of everybody, most people that would get that opportunity would do, but not
One thing I want to
not
bring
us.
up
I wouldn't.
too about this thing is
Don't
it's
hate
great to
yourself.
like consciously take some time to do inner child connecting. Sure, if it feels like the right thing to do. But I think part of the trap in the new age is the perpetual healing loop of like, there's always the next excuse or next reason why you're not firing on all cylinders and whole right here in the now. So I try to just not look at myself as needing healing, but whenever some crazy epiphany does come out from a memory resurfacing, I go with it and like I
Yeah.
integrate that, but not like looking at myself like, oh, my poor me, this or that happened at this age and I still haven't gotten over it. I generally just act like I'm over it and let let the flashbacks hit where they may, I guess, and roll with it.
But you've got a different outlook. Like you're not going to sit in your victimhood. You're not looking for that to be a excuse for your victimhood, which is kind of what that is. Just
I think
sitting
I
in
have
Yeah, I
it.
my
think that the
answer
key
now.
is to just not,
And I've done that
the
before.
key to not
Like,
being broken is don't be broken.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Guys, I think I
Except
have my answer now.
except that you have control and take control of your life at that point. What is it?
It's complicated, but I think it would be like, don't talk to that girl.
You got one.
I'd have to send back like 3 missives to different years with that exact letter.
Right.
Yeah, don't talk to that girl or that girl or that girl.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at least
and
Like
3.
avoid them.
man, I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would say to myself. I like
I wouldn't
that
want to
that
mess
would
up the
be
plot. It's all turned out so
exactly.
good.
Exactly. I don't want to
Ruin the surprise.
I
I
don't want
would
to
have
ruin
never
it.
seen Freddie got fingered if I wouldn't have talked to that girl.
I like what
See,
James just said
silver
in the chat.
linings.
The realm we live in is too big for us to get an accurate view of no matter what we do. is trying to navigate with a map that is the same size as reality.
Yes.
It's like that.
Jim, it's like what you're saying, we have to have the mystery. We have to have some mystery in our realm to keep things
Mystery is my story.
right. We have to keep asking the next question.
Yeah, it's what actual science is it's the thirst and seeking of answers. Science by definition cannot be settled. You know, they say the science is settled on that. The science is settled on that. The science, by what it is, the scientific method is never settled because you're always checking it and asking questions of it. It's become a religion now, and it's not even what it was. They took this word science and totally changed the
Perverted
meaning.
it?
Yeah, change the meaning of it. It's
Inversion. Like Chance's whole thing.
Hey, Yeti slang in the house. What's up, Johnny?
Johnny.
One of my
what's up,
favorite
buddy?
Weaving Spiders episodes was the Johnny one. So
I know.
good.
I love that. I love that. We gotta do it again, Johnny.
It was
do
like
it
a
again.
picture perfect
Best.
experience for me. I was listening to that while like doodling with markers and coloring into my own lines, you know? Ideal.
awesome.
It's a very
Awesome.
choice combination.
What gets you into that state? Like, how do you get into that? How do you try and get flow?
Force it, brute force.
Yeah, that always works, right? I'm going to flow, understanding cosmic order.
I just kind of do what I want. And so sometimes that's why my show doesn't have an exact release date schedule. Like it's not on Thursdays or something.
Well, that's why I like this. Like,
You know, I've had my next episode has been theoretically, if I had really brute forced myself to do it, I could have had this episode released back on Thursday at the earliest, right? And it's still not published. But it will be tomorrow, and that'll be fine. I don't know. Just kind of going with it. And sometimes I want to, there's just so many things to do in life. And why think that we know exactly how it would all work out if we had just made ourselves miserable by trying so hard?
yeah,
There's like a time and a place for putting it in a more serious and sustained burst of effort. But when that time and place comes, when it's really appropriate, you'll feel good throughout pretty much the whole thing. Like it'll feel like the right way to be doing it. You know what I'm saying?
I made
Absolutely.
an inspirational collage one time when I was in college. I made an inspirational collage and I put it on the back of the bathroom door. So in our apartment, we had guys in the apartment, and we'd sit down and we'd close the door, and then I put a poster up. It was a collection of fashion models, and they were all making the fashion face, and I made a collage of all of the fashion faces, and I said, just let it out, and I made the lettering say, just let it out, as we sat on the toilet with the door closed with the fashion model faces, and that was our inspiration as artists, to just let it out.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a really how my art style would be described. I thought about going and getting some art to hold up to the camera. It's nothing that nar, but what it is like time and energy equals something, right? And so my stuff is just really complex doodling, and a lot of times not much plan in it. But the more I do it, the more regularly I do it, the more tricks I get up my sleeve, and the more my brain seems able to just pop into the mode. And then I don't know, last couple of years I haven't spent as much time actually doing physical graphic art. But there will come in a time where I do a lot more again. So I just look at it like right now I really am just putting a lot of effort into the type of things and getting my house to be a better space for flow states to happen in, which can be a lot of work sometimes for some periods.
Oh yeah, that's really rewarding.
But
It's
just do the thing for real. Like no wrong answers. That's the best way to approach your art. Just do it. No way to fail.
exactly. And then it's done. you
I one
know?
time spilled coffee on a piece of art that I've been working on for like 6 months. That was a huge piece, and it was like 80% complete. I got so angry, and then I didn't touch it for a long time. And then I looked at it one day, and I was like, you know what? I can probably just make this work with coffee stains on it. And I finished it. It was pretty cool. People
That's
have
cool.
bought prints of it before. So like literally, I I could have just been like, I failed. It's ruined. I broke it. And I did feel that way at first, but at a point, something just inspired me like, work with the stains, work them into it. See if you can make it so that no one even notices
Yeah, and that was
they're
part of the
there.
art.
And I'll notice them forever, but generally people can't even notice them. So no wrong answers for sure.
I did a whole like I studied art in college, and for a whole year I didn't draw anything except for this. I had this image in my head of a tree, and it was like on a hill. It was all sort of like twisted, and the moon was over it, a full moon, and I just drew this same thing over and over and over and over again, like in every single different way, all kinds of different ways. And like each time I drew it differently. And it got to the point where I was like splashing wine on the page, and it would look like a tree branch, and then so that would become the tree. It's pretty.
Well, that's what Johnny does. Have you seen how he does that? He'll just take a bunch of scribbles and turn them into something.
Yes,
And
yes.
I did that. I did that as a kid. I mean, he's gifted at it, but you do that as a kid and turn it into a monster or something like that. And I think that's that automatic um, creator in us. Like we have to make order out of something chaotic. It's like pareidolia is
Pareidolia. Yes.
triggering everybody's creative impulses. Like
Now, so look, there is one exception to what I said about no wrong answers. My sweet lady in the chat, she just said, she told the story of one time we were working on art in the living room. We had our stuff all on the floor. She was doing a watercolor. It was badass, self-portrait. And our friend showed up, and his dog burst in the house and was so excited to see us. She immediately ran on top of the art and just peed all over the watercolor she was working on. So that was irrecoverable.
oh no.
You don't work with those
Yeah.
kind of stains.
Oh
No
no.
need to salvage it if it's been urinated on, unless that's part of your intended artistic expression.
Yeah, dude, you could get a bunch of those and do a gallery showing in New York. Like they buy that shit like crazy. Ooh, dog urine, how fancy. It means the existential bullshit.
What do you guys think
Somebody
about
will
the drinking
fancify
urine
it.
thing? Are you into it?
No,
I'm not either.
not anymore.
Into what?
Not lately.
It's just people lately, there's been multiple comments like cover drinking your own urine and why that's good for you.
Chance and I
And
talked about that.
I just want to know what you guys think.
Show.
You know what I think? I think that the people that talk about that, a lot of times they're shills. I mean, I think they're agency related, and because a lot of times they will be somebody who parallels somebody else's work. Like somebody will have an interesting like flat earth sort of thing, and then somebody else will come and they'll have a similar sort of line of work, and
Don't
they
knock
will
it till you try it.
overshadow the other person's art, and then and they steal all the followers, and then they start talking about drinking your own urine, and it's like it's a whole, like
Wait, who's
Well,
talking
some of
about
them
this?
call it
Wait, is
Orin,
this?
and that makes me think of the Orin from Neverending Story. That's entirely the reason why I'm bringing this up, by the way.
what do they call it?
The
Golden
Neverending Story,
showers.
the Orin
Oh,
is the amulet that gives the bearer protection in Fantasia. And it's
Is
this
that
crazy double Ouroboros. It's two
double?
snakes consuming each other's tails, a silver and a gold. Really
Yeah.
wild symbol. But
mm,
some of
mm.
the Instagram influencers I've seen promoting the drinking of one's own urine, they call it Orin because it's gold, and Or
Yeah.
is an old word for gold. And they also do aged urine enemas, according to Per Your Media. So this isn't me like ripping on it. I literally want to know what it like, why this is happening. Is it really necessary?
That's an open
It
question
okay
we
to
have
do
here.
if it's your own
on
choice?
Weaving Spiders Welcome. What is the deal with golden showers?
To me, it just seems like, I don't know. I've even seen people that these influencers post videos of like animals drinking their own pee, as if that's supposed to convince me that means I should do it. You know, there's a lot of things that animals do.
This sounds like
But there might
is
be
this
like, I could see there being a therapeutic purpose to it in some case, but I don't see it as like this is your everyday go-to move. That's how I
is
feel.
this like a Gwyneth Paltrow or Chrissy Teigen thing? Like, is this like a new trend or something? Trying to normalize it as like a therapy? It sounds
There's
like
a
something they would do.
Why
there's
do
a
we need this
shamanic,
therapy? Why would we need this therapy, and why wouldn't other therapies suffice? To me, it's like I do think there could be agency input here, right? Like,
Yeah.
is it not just symbolically self-demeaning or submissive to accept this advice? I don't know. And could not the placebo effect, as powerful as it is, even give people the feeling that there's a strong benefit to doing this through the ritual?
I was
Yeah,
showing my
absolutely.
phone, and I have a picture of the Ring of Bara here. Saruman shows it in a book in the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers movie. And the Ring of Bara here is two snakes,
And that's
similar to
what
the one.
Aragorn wears to symbolize that he is the rightful heir and king of Gondor.
Reminds me of Orin
yeah.
from the Neverending Story. Two snakes.
Siberian shamans, they eat mushrooms. They eat very poisonous Amanita muscaria mushrooms, and their body processes it, and then they pee, and the people in their tribe would drink the urine because all of the most toxic, harmful chemicals were filtered out by the shaman's body, and he would make a sacrifice. It would like take a toll on his life doing this ritual over and over again, but it allowed the other people to actually go to the other world, take a
Is it worth it though? You know, I guess it's his choice to make the sacrifice.
Is the other world the ladies' restroom?
well, the world of the dead, the dream world or whatever.
The ladies' restroom where the couch is.
I don't know, I've never been in there, but I heard it's fantastic.
It's always the cleaner one.
To me,
So
that's
yeah,
the
if you
other
gotta
world.
drop a deuce, that's where you gotta go.
Yeah.
Because it's
Unless you're in
clean
Denver.
in there.
I went to Denver, like I said, and all the restrooms are both genders only.
Oh yeah.
No more distinction between who
Because-
goes into which bathroom, even when it's a multi-person bathroom. I found that very, I don't know, difficult, because I felt like it was really a loss to the ladies more than anything.
That removes the mystery.
It sure does. And I don't know, guys are just more
Yeah.
brutal in those places and leave more carnage, I would think. But I was informed when I brought this up that ladies' bathrooms are actually can be quite the war zone themselves, and that it's not necessarily this
No, that's
mystique
not
of
true.
it being cleaner.
I don't
Mhm.
believe that.
Oh, I've been somewhere where the men's room, I'd been there many times, like a
That's a
bar.
conspiracy.
And the men's room, the mirror's broken and all scratched up, and there's only like a little tiny part that you can see yourself, and there's graffiti all over the walls. And then like I saw the women's room one time, like the place was closing down and my friend was cleaning it, and they had carpet, they had a couch, they had like peacock
You're like,
feather, you know, like a
I'm
whole,
getting ripped off.
yeah, exactly. It's like,
Oh, we got some
wow.
serious gravy in the chat, y'all.
What's that?
Okay, is it screen share possible?
Yes,
Okay, can I do one real quick?
do it.
All right.
Do it.
Is it showing this Egyptian thing?
I see the
Yeah,
mask
mhm,
of
I see it.
Tutankhamun.
The
Oh, are you
two
seeing it?
snakes. That symbol is called the Uraeus.
Yes.
I feel like there's an interesting sync link looping us from Orin to urine.
There is
Hmm.
some reality shaping there with the Theban priesthood, and it's a very difficult topic to describe simply. I'm showing a book right now that really gets into the Theban priesthood symbolism.
Hmm. I was wondering about that.
Yes.
Is that the secret priesthood?
This is a Pierre Sabak book, and
I might pivot over to that from Robert Anton Wilson because I'm really interested. I loved that guy's appearances on some recent shows that he went around on. I just like anyone that goes that far with etymology and word magic as their chain of evidence. I can get into that all day.
Yeah, man. I have these old books of hermetics that I inherited from my father-in-law. My father-in-law passed away. My wife's dad had all these books on hermetics and stuff, and we talk about that stuff. But he was like a huge influence on how I think spiritually because I like kind of inherited these things, and getting into that hermetics books and the Silva mind control books, like those were mind blowing at the time. Have you guys ever read those? And you probably have. Do you have the Hermetics Bible? Chance, you probably have like 4 or 5 of them.
No, I don't.
Have you read those or
It's an area of study I intend to go further into.
Yeah, I should get back into it, but like especially all the stories about Solomon being the first magician, or there was the last of a line of sorcerers who were able to control the demons and build the temple with the demons. Have you ever heard
Speaking
this?
of hermetics and art and Hermes, I met somebody a month ago, I guess. And I met this woman by, first of all, stumbling upon her art in the art gallery at a music festival. They had a tent that was like an art gallery for the live painters who were there. And this painting she did was, I can probably find it after this story and screen share that too, because it's so cool. But it's just this 3 paintings that go together that symbolize the alchemical great work in a super amazing way. And really deep knowledge of symbolism or expression of hermetic symbolism, like high level. Look, it reminds you of like a alchemical painting of the Renaissance period or something like that, a more modern style. And I met her and talked to her about it, and she told me the story of having basically been like a pretty normie person and then getting struck by lightning and then getting downloads and communicating with Hermes, like literally Hermes.
Wow.
And immediately starting to paint all these crazy hermetic and mythological, synchromystical paintings,
Huh.
like at a
Who
high
is this?
level of painting. Really interesting.
Who is
I'm-
this?
Find her and screen share the painting I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Anyone ever been struck by lightning here? Because her boyfriend had been struck by lightning a few weeks before she was, and they met both each other after they had been recently struck by lightning. And he's also a painter. They were so cool. Their names are Bruce and Cami. I met him at the music festival. It's called Reconnection in Missouri in June.
Wow, that's I've never been struck by lightning, but my grandmother's house used to have this wrought iron that was
Well, they
on
weren't
the
hurt by the way.
outsides
They were
of the
struck by lightning,
windows.
but
Oh,
unharmed.
okay. I was wondering if I was actually struck by lightning because I was asleep.
I have a friend that got struck by lightning twice.
Really?
Yeah, he was first time he was working up on a windmill. He was a windmill repair guy, and he got struck by lightning, and he just threw all his tools off the windmill and went home. And then
He was
like
fine?
he was shook up. He got pissed. He like went into fight or flight and was just mad. He walked off the job, threw his tools on the ground and left them and drove home like as fast as he could. He was all like shook up. And then he got struck by lightning like 6 months later. He was playing football.
What? You know this guy? It sounds
Yeah.
like what's that Damien who's that near death experience guy that's been Damien gosh, what's his name? What is it? Eccles. Is it Eccles?
That might be who you're
Damien
talking about.
Eccles? Yeah, I think so. He's been hit by lightning like 14 times, some ungodly amount.
Is he out flying kites with keys on him or something?
I know, you'd think so, right? No, the way he tells the story, it's like, oh yeah, this time, and then this time, and then this time. And he used to be on Coast like a long time ago, like sharing his near-death experiences, and they were pretty cool. Like I always wonder about the people who get struck by lightning, like how that changes your life.
Definitely.
I'll share the painting now. I only could find it on Instagram, which meant it was small. So I blew it up using a program I have that enlarges photos with an algorithm. But that may make it a little bit not as true to life perfect. But these are the three paintings, and they were all side by side in this gallery. And I went in there and just was like 30 minutes staring at it all.
I totally could.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I love this is what led me here, was loving art, actually. And then that was what my show was all about originally. And then things just kind of got weirder from there. I got interested in more things.
Right. Because you start, that I want to see if that's the same artist as this thing.
Oh, just so people know, I'll just put it in Instagram, or on an Instagram. I'll put her Instagram profile in the chat. That
I don't know
artist.
who this is, but it has that kind of feel. This was from a
Holy
tarot.
Grail.
It was supposed to be one of cups or something. I'm not a tarot guy, so I don't know, but it's that same kind of texture upon layer upon texture, kind of with colors. It's always really cool to me, kind of like the etchings, like wood etchings of MC Escher's or Albrecht Dürer. Those are always like the most striking. Like your shirt, like that that kind of stuff. Of your shirt, Chance.
Good that you would say Elbrick Durer because there are some Elbrick Durers in this book here.
Ah, see.
I'm not gonna keep showing this book off and teasing it too much because it'll just frustrate people further as they're gonna want to know more about it, and I won't be able to provide all of the answers to it. So I'll just give the plug. His name's PR Sabak. He's got a YouTube channel. He goes through all of the information on his YouTube channel.
Seems like a good compliment to Spirit World by Dylan Secosio.
I would definitely agree with that. Yes.
That's why I want to get into it. But Robert Anton Wilson is quite entertaining as well. I appreciate all the reading recommendations. After the first one turned out so amazing, The Never Ending Story, now you have a lot of trust from me on what books to read above other books that I might read. So take that very seriously. Very serious responsibility.
That's a responsibility.
I feel the weight of that responsibility on my shoulders. I feel it right now.
So, book recommendations, since Chance, you and I were talking about Chris Claremont. Have you ever read X-Men's God Loves, Man Kills?
I think so. That sounds like what happens in that arc?
That was the one where the preacher is getting the church whipped up against the mutants, and they're trying to execute all the mutants. So they get like this kind of KKK kind of. It's like, it feels like a KKK kind of
lynch mob.
What do they call it? Analogy? But it's the church whipping them up. It's a televangelist.
Yeah, you can't have those deviant individuals existing.
That's right.
All must be conforming to the dogma of the broken man in need of salvation from an external source.
And execute the brokenest. It's eugenics.
Yeah, there's a lot of sci-fi that has picked up on the eugenics thing in the world. It's not a new thing. What I think will be interesting is in the future, if societies that look at the history of the time we're in right now will describe things the way that when we read about the old Roman Empire, like you had the ruling class and then you had like citizens and then you had slaves. Will they look at this like with the middle and upper class be kind of citizens and then the very lower classes be remembered as slaves in future times? Or will we all the way up the ladder in the rat race be considered as slaves by a future historian? You know, I don't want to consider myself a slave or feel like one, but to the degree that we tolerate stuff is how much we get of it. Like to Alan's story about what happened with his dad just needing a simple help from the medical mafia and all the hoops and hoopla that had to be passed through for even like in a perfect world, would you not just be able to walk into the place where things like that are handled and then immediately they listen to you and say, okay, he immediately needs fluids and some kind of electrolyte restoration or whatever process they're going to do in an IV. And how long should that take?
Someone's in the emergency room with an
emergency. They need the nuclear reactor hazmat suit person to be decontaminated for 30 minutes before they can even come out and, you know, whatever else shenanigans are going on in the paperwork. Yeah, we got to,
when we ask
how hard would it be to learn how to just IV somebody and just have that stuff in your house ready to go in case of emergency? You know, I mean, I'm not saying that you should have already had that prepared, but like, what if that was part of what we just all kind
fluids
of
should have been offered to him immediately when he sat down. They should have brought out fluids, Pedialyte, electrolytes, whatever they had, because they were requested.
It's pretty damn easy, right?
Questions asked.
Yeah, exactly. That should be so easy.
Did they ask you outright if he was vaccinated? Alan?
That was not asked outright, and we were
Okay.
trying to avoid that conclusion.
Yeah.
Part of getting into the ER was to look at a list of symptoms, and we were like, we're not here to look at a list of symptoms. We're here because he needs fluids and an IV. He doesn't need a lecture.
Right.
He doesn't need to sign documents. He needs help. He needs fluids and he needs an
Well,
IV.
I mean,
He doesn't need to wait an hour.
It's like the only thing that they're actually treating is the legal person, and the living man in need of actual physical help in the form of an action is being
Thank you.
completely ignored and lost for the legal reality of the literal words.
Thank you for saying that, because that's exactly where my frustration was coming from. And Gordon was telling me, like, I don't know how you could not get angry. There's a security guard there.
hmm
I was watched on camera. I think there was a part on this consent form about that very issue. There's a check
And
mark
also
here
that
for
what's being
research.
filmed could be used for teaching purposes.
Photos and videos. My medical team may take
I read that
photos
consent
Right.
form. I
or
was
videos
curious.
for treatment or teaching purposes. I will tell my medical team
Teaching
if I don't
purposes.
want photos or videos taken of me. I understand that video monitoring is used on site for clinical operations and safety reasons. These images are only visible to authorized personnel and are not routinely saved. If the images are saved for an authorized purpose, such as quality improvement, they are stored confidentially and released only with proper authorization. On a consent form that he was.
They farm us for our consent. You said they farm us for our current, but really that's done through consent farming. That's
They
why it
need
wasn't even
consent.
necessary to get the paper signed. It was like they baked that into the ritual because it does psychically let them vampirize you more the more times you put your name down and say
We were
yes,
not
daddy, please.
acquiescing. We were not consenting to anything.
But also one thing that people don't know about the hospitals is they actually, like most of them are a type of corporation that under their own rule set, regardless of what you have in status as a legal person, they are supposed to first and foremost treat you no matter what with whatever you need to immediately help save your life.
That's
And
the
so
patient's bill of rights.
but as soon as
Yeah,
you get into
the
all
brief.
these things, like all this paperwork, it becomes about the legal person. As soon as the insurance card is produced, it's all the legal person that's getting the help, and they don't have the same rights. Your fictional self doesn't have the same rights as a homeless, nameless John Doe off the street would have inherently if brought to the hospital with nothing on him, no identification, and unconscious. They would
It sounds
immediately
like
get
slavery to
care
me.
with no one paying the bill, and it would all go like it should. But there's actually so many more steps involved when we get in, the more middlemen we put in there.
It's because when we sign the papers, we become their property. And a homeless man who doesn't have a name isn't their property. So they have to treat him like a human being because he's outside of their realm of control, outside of the system. Language is such a incredible magic, the
Especially
law.
when the one coming to get you to agree to the hex is so far hexed themselves that they literally just repeat a script and are acting out a program, and you cannot reason with them, and they have no authority in their mind to make any decision. And it's like, how much of the problems in the realm are strictly from the order followers doing harm? And like, how much can we blame how much can we blame influencers more than the ones that actually just straight up do perpetrate the actions that do harm?
The order follower in the hazmat suit explaining to me how this was the end of the line if you do not consent to a swab up the nose, then there's nothing we can do. And we stated, "Oh, right, we don't consent to that. We're here for fluids and an IV." And at that point, she was just like, "It's not my policy. It's the corporate policy, and there's nothing I can do to change that." And we had already waited an hour. So
It's
at that point,
unreal, man.
Hey.
That can you imagine how evacuated it must be in that existence to say that phrase? There's someone that needs help in front of you right then, and it's like, but if you don't let us nose swab you, and I'm in a hazmat suit, just like it's really hard to put myself. We were talking about empathy and like other people's reality tunnels. We started out like how hard it is to get into that reality tunnel in my imagination. It's
I
so
cannot imagine
oh,
what got her to that place in her life where she's
but don't you? I mean, have compassion for that is like actually a real challenge. That's very powerful sorcery right there.
Yeah, they're empowered by it, you know, and they're empowered by their, you know, well, I guess it's like their own society. They like the Academy Awards. It's where actors honor themselves for being actors. And the medical industry, you know, they have their own language, they have their own society sort of, and there's a hierarchy there, and they're more important than we are. You know, in their minds, they've gone to school, they have the
And most of the people that work in those jobs are so overloaded by the way that their hours work that to even think or dream of A, leaving that career or that profession, or B, trying to learn something outside of work.
consuming.
And like it's such a tight knit culture. They're literally trauma bonding with each other at all times, the ones that are these employees. So, you know, it is an us versus them naturally, I think, can emerge out of that.
absolutely. And if they disagree with any of the dogma, then they get kicked out of the culture. You have to take the pill.
Yeah, and here's a good line in the chat. It's the normalization of sociopathy by leveraging the concept of communitarianism, all for one and one for all.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening.
There's totally a role in of communitarianism. That's what, you know,
More things that we can do without needing a collective solution, probably the better for everybody.
Yeah. I wear a mask because you don't want me to kill your grandma. Do it for the community. Even though it's illegal to make me, it's not really a law, but communitarianism, the community law, is the highest law.
In the Telegram earlier today or earlier tonight, not long before this, I think it was over on Lindsay's Rogue Ways Telegram channel, but it was shared a supposedly satirical video game that was just released about disinfecting lockdown protesters in Tokyo, coming back to Tokyo here.
Really, in a video game?
And in the video game, you're using flamethrowers and thermite grenades to disinfect the protesters of anti-lockdowns. And in an arcade game style, it is simply the same level repeated over and over again with an attempt to get the highest score of how many
They're the
deviants are
zombies, they're the
disinfected.
other.
But it's satire though, guys. And it's totally
Sure it is.
like what blows my mind is not that exists or that some lone independent game developer or programmer would create it thinking, haha, this is funny or edgy, or this will get me a lot of attention. What's interesting is that the corporation Steam allows that onto their sales platform as something that they are willing to sell because it is a very low quality game. It looked like that was very small and meaningless and like about the equivalent of some crappy $2 game you might download on a smartphone or worse, right? But why is that yeah, is that satire or is, like, what is the message?
Was it
How's that there?
promoted?
Do you think that someone will play that and how many people will play that and not think of it as satire and be like, yeah, fuck the protesters or whatever? I wonder.
Well, it's seeding. That stuff is just seeding potential. Like just seeding a thought that those people are the other. It doesn't have to be real super effective that thinks it's
Yeah,
real.
there's people out there that identify with the stormtrooper in Star Wars more than with Luke.
Yeah, exactly. Like I
I've
know a
seen their
guy
bumper
that,
stickers.
yeah, I know a guy that like is real serious about Jedi stuff, and he's like, I've always like been drawn to the dark side more, like because you like the costumes or you gotta wear some buttons. Like I don't understand why you want to be a bad person. Like
The way that in the Star Wars video games I played back in the day, like Knights of the Old Republic, the way you knew your character was the dark side by the choices you made was because their face would start getting all like leprous and pale looking. And the further in the dark side, the more horribly unhealthy they looked. So
mhm,
that's kind of the truth, though, right? Like there
it
is
is
this
very
weird
much so.
irony that some of the healthcare professionals you will meet out there that are the most adamant about that you need a jab are they look like they could die tomorrow just out of the
Absolutely. The
blue.
hypocrisy is just amazing. And we all know this. Like you go to a hospital, 90% of the nurses are obese and smokers. And they're the ones promoting it the most.
Yeah.
Dancing nurses all over the place. Come on.
I
We
don't
know
think
those.
those are even real. I feel like those
I
are,
don't think so. They're
I think that
not.
it's part of this creating like the us versus them. They're the bad guys, they're the medical mafia, but like again, they went through the universe cities through to get to the position of the vaulted doctor or whatever that their family probably put so much pressure on them to reach. They had to be the best at conforming, the best at filling in the blank with the right answer, the best at the memorization of the corporate bylines to get there. And then they're rewarded every step of the way. So on a meta programming level, there's very little incentive for them to change that reality tunnel, no matter how far from reality their belief system takes them. Like, they'll ride that thing till the wheels fall off a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because they've got so much invested in it. By the time they actually get to where they wanted to go, they've got all this money, all this everything.
I mean, can you imagine putting that much effort into attaining a certain lifestyle, realizing it's all a lie, and having to go against all of your colleagues and friends to speak out? And you've got mortgages and kids that you want to send to college because you still believe that's the right way, because otherwise you'd have to accept that you wasted so much of your life in college. And like there's so many band-aids that have to be ripped off for that reality tunnel to shift,
Right.
that it's
Yeah.
got to be pretty torturous, I would think.
Yeah, that's that materialism thing that people get their self stuck in. And I mean, sure, we all have growing up in America, like we've been exposed to materialism all our lives. And we're just trying to, like, those of us who are really thinking and trying for more are the ones that are realizing this is all bullshit. Like our core, it's bullshit at our core, how we're teaching our children and how our, like, we don't acknowledge our own spirit. We don't acknowledge
Steve
that
said
we're
his wife
part of
is an
nature.
RN. He said that his wife, as an RN, says people are coming down with leukemia a bunch. Isn't that what Mark Hoppus got? Some kind of blood cancer? The Blink-182 guy?
Huh. Oh, that's right. He did. You're right.
That sucks.
You know what, guys? You want to know a tone for helping your blood purify itself and do its job
Oh yeah.
properly?
Do your thing.
Absolutely.
No, it's no tools required, guys. The tone, he, or like the syllable, I guess, for he stimulates your blood's powers to do what it needs to do. And there's tones like that for every organ and major functional system in the body. And I do that one, I feel my blood tingling like I was bit by a radioactive spider or something.
That was
you
almost a
get that?
dial tone. That was cool.
Can I hear it again? I want it. Oh my.
Let's all do it together
Okay.
Yeah.
so we don't get leukemia.
Yeah.
I almost need to go an octave higher.
Good. If that feels more right to you, it's the right way to do it. Cultivating vibes. Put some energy into it,
Yeah. You have to.
Here,
we'll throat sing it. Here.
The throat lozenge is really helping me.
But see, that goes back to this Robert Anton Wilson thing of like, how far do we need to prove? And this is also a Wilhelm Reich thing. Wilhelm Reich had thoughts on the idea of proving things, right? And that really it's better to just get someone into the process of exploring an idea for themselves rather than to try to prove that idea to them. So in the same sense with like your reality model conceptualization you're going to use, if you can take on a practice, if the only thing it does is make you feel better about the probability of whether or not your outcome is going to be desirable, like doing that vocalization protect you from leukemia, because we just saw in the chat that like a lot of people are getting leukemia. Oh, what if I get leukemia? But now we're gonna put on this lozenge.
So we all become what about Bob, and we're
It's
like
a frequency
half Tourette's.
lozenge.
I can go all night with this.
See, like I want to know different tones than that. I only know a few such ones, but information could be discovered.
You let it kind of flows though when you're in that, when you try and get in that qigong kind of state, it'll kind of tell you where to go, like with the sounds and the movements. So have you felt that, Chance?
Yeah, dude, I love qigong. And sometimes I can really get into a flow state where it's like the breath is what is moving my limbs and not my will. Like the energy ball I'm visualizing between my hands is the only thing that I'm moving is making it bigger or smaller. Actually, I'm doing it right now. I'm not like willing my hands to move in the normal, I don't know, left brain conscious way. I'm focusing on there being a ball of energy that's expanding between my hands and it's pushing them apart. I've had experience with a friend one time where we did that with each other. Like we stood facing palm to palm and we were pushing each other's hands away. Actually, how we did it was I put my hands outside of his and his were together. His hands were together like this and mine were outside of them. And I did the energy ball thing like I normally would do by myself, but it also pushed his hands without him willing his hands to move. It's pretty fun. Yeah, dude, the subtle energy practices are the best.
Yeah.
Internal scanning of how it feels to be inside of yourself is a great way to reintegrate your reality interface to what's actually happening.
And live in the second, not the moment, the second, like just be present.
Those are
Yeah.
sound ideas.
Sound idea. That's
Boom.
beautiful. That's actually
I'm-
boom. That's the name of the episode.
I'm manifesting
Sound ideas.
astral Ricola right now.
Do you guys do breath work? Chance, do you do normally breath like as a part of a normal practice?
Yeah, there's different things I'll do. Sometimes I'll just do like that classic Wim Hof breath of fire. It's a good way to
Yeah. Mhm.
feel energized. I guess you could call it meditation, but it's mostly just me laying down and closing my eyes and focusing just on breathing, but not attempting to lose consciousness. I'll do some of that. I learned a couple of moves of Su Lung, I think it's called. It was something that was during Lindsay's One Day of Brightness event. She had some cool martial artist wizard guy show us a
Alan
couple
Sisko.
of movements that were breathing oriented.
Mhm.
Like the best one was for me, this is like a huge head rush sometimes if I haven't been breathing properly, to like hold your breath, take up to a 75, 80% breath, and then roll your neck. You roll your neck while you're holding that breath both ways 5 times.
Oh yeah.
Pretty long breath
I
hold.
remember this now.
And then after you roll your neck, you could do it 3 times if it's too hard to do it 5 times before releasing the breath. But you do that, and then you look down and look up, down, up, and then take a further inhale, and then exhale forcefully, shooting the breath and the energy out the top of your head.
Mhm.
And there's other movements that use a similar structure like that, but like you can roll the shoulders instead of rolling the neck. But you can make these things up for yourself as well.
Exactly.
Another thing you can do are you can program shortcuts to these type of practices, where say that there's a certain thing that is certain thing that accentuates the practice or is like a important part of it. Like when at the end of this one, the neck roll, the part where you exhale and blast the energy at the top of your head, you could just shortcut and do just that with the intention of tapping into how it feels every time you do the full breath work.
I was
Still not
just
as
gonna
strong as
mention that.
actually doing the breath work generally, but there are, especially, it's more, a better example for shortcuts is really in visualization practices, where
Mhm.
you do a strong visualization practice of for a certain effect, maybe a certain chakra that you're working with or a protection thing. And you have maybe a mudra type hand clasp or something that for you means that practice. That can be a good shortcut. I don't actually want to tell people to take shortcuts on breathing practices. I think I would rather they just
I
breathe.
like to do
I think that's better.
neck roll. And
What's
then-
kind of like
And then I do the egg roll, where it's like, yum. I feel
I like spring
Oh,
rolls.
better.
I'm more of a spring roll guy.
I love egg rolls. I haven't had one in years. I wonder if it'd make me sick. like that's how I like introduce stuff back into my diet. I'm like, I wonder if that'll make me sick. Like
Oh yeah, Kaylee in the chat said the Red Lotus guy was awesome. He was.
Alan
Cisco.
Alan Sisko is his name. He kind of turned me on to qigong. I never like even thought about it until he mentioned
I had a very
Lindsay's show,
Chapel
and
Perilous type of encounter that led me to qigong personally.
what was that?
Well, you guys up for me to tell a
Do
story?
you have I don't have
Story
stories.
time.
Okay,
up
so
I'm awake.
If you got time,
it's probably not that horrifically long. I can do pretty condensed version.
It
But
would be a good bedtime story for me. I haven't taken my
so
nighttime
Robert
meds.
Anton Wilson describes Chapel Perilous as like a point in your life where you enter the unknown and you're like surfing through it and all kinds of weird things are occurring and it's a storm of synchronicities. And I was in such a time in my life in the early 20s. I think I was like 23. And in these adventures, I wound up making a friend whose house I was hanging out with over a weekend while I was also attending an event in that town because I had to go out of town to do this. And he gave me some interesting stones, like a cup. No, he just gave me one actually, an interesting like picture jasper or pocket stone, and was showing me different crystals he had. And I didn't know really about crystals, and I have a ton of stones and crystals for sure. They just accumulated in my life since then. But anyway, this small pocket stone, I think picture jasper, I was like, okay, cool. And this was sort of my first heady pocket rock ever gifted to me by a hippie. And I liked it. And the next day I went to a sweat lodge ceremony with some Native American elders, which that was also a spur of the moment decision and experience that I hadn't planned on doing. And even why I was up in St. Louis for that time was interesting because I'd done like shamanic journey work before I went on that trip of like inner world visualization and trying to connect with guides that basically I was told in that to go visit St. Louis for this weekend. So all kinds of weird things happen. Trying to maybe not overdo explaining the synchronicities and connections because it would just lengthen the story. So whatever. I was in a sweat lodge and they had this pipe that was set. They told the story of having found it on the land that we were on. And it was a clay pipe that resembled a serpent woman. And Alan showed us a picture of a serpent woman out of the Pierre Sabak book earlier tonight. I'm just now realizing. And so the pipe was like taken to local Native American historian society who claimed it was probably like several thousand years old. It was some sort of ritual relic. And so they had actually patched up the damaged part of it and they were using it in ceremony. That was the peace pipe they were passing around. And they had done all kinds of like psychometry and tried to do channeling. They were telling all these stories, trying to do channeling with the pipe to see if there's any kind of egregore attached to it or entity or spirit helping through it. And there was, and their channeling revealed that the spirit was called Atoshi. Don't know what the significance of that name. Maybe someone else does. But during the sweat lodge, after we had used the pipe, I set this pocket stone on top of the pipe. And I asked the spirit in the pipe that they had called Atoshi to enter into the stone so that it could come with me, or a part of it could come with me after the sweat lodge. The sweat lodge was totally awesome, hugely transformative. Bunch of other wild stuff happened to me over that weekend, but now I'm going to fast forward because I had carried the pocket stone for months at this point, and I thought maybe close to a year. And I thought that there definitely was something lucky about it or something that did carry the great experience of the sweat lodge and that spiritual updraft in the stone. And I was at an event, a music festival in Wisconsin, and walking, it was like 2:30 in the morning between sets late at night. I think I was heading back to camp or getting water while at camp. And I passed by many strangers and other people on this walk to get the water or go to the porta potty, whatever the case may be. But one particular stranger, just in my mind, the thought screamed at me, give her the stone, Atoshi. Give that person this stone. And I was not really wanting to do that because I liked this cool stone and it had a lot of stories attached to it. But
I've experienced
I followed.
the same thing before.
I
I know
followed
exactly
the
that.
idea and I gave it to her and told her the story of where it came from, this random stranger. And she stopped and listened to all this and received it graciously. And then she said, I feel like there needs to be an exchange here and that I'm supposed to tell you about something, but I don't know what. Have you ever heard of Qigong? I don't really know what it is, but something's telling me I'm supposed to tell you to learn about Qigong. And so I took that very seriously because it was expensive. I had to give up a stone I really liked to get that tip. And when I got back from this trip, I found Qigong online and learned from the website I found was great and ended up being the exact right teacher, the exact right level I needed at that time for a practice that's carried me since then and really helped me energetically gain a sensitivity to what my internal flows feel like. So, long story, but it had a snake lady in it, so it seems to fit.
I totally get that. I've had a very similar experience one time. I had a moonstone and I've been carrying it around in my pocket for like months, couple months. Been to like I would stand out in the full moon and put it in my mouth and try to like uh gain some sort of enhanced third eye powers. And I met one of my friends had a friend over and it was the first time I met him and something told me that I needed to give him that rock. And so I was like, I feel like I have to give this to you. It's a moonstone. He's like, what is it? He was like sort of like a total like cowboy hick sort of person that you wouldn't think would be into rocks like that. And he was like, oh, that's cool. And then we talked a little bit and then I mean I knew him a little bit, hung out with him a little bit, but then we parted ways and I moved away, ended up running into him 2 years later. And it kind of changed his life. He said that when I gave him that rock, he got really interested in rocks and sort of like new age stuff and, totally like helped him get through a divorce, the whole like, finding a spiritual path that was not part of what he was used to.
And that man became a Scientologist after that, and his name was Tom Cruise.
Probably.
I feel like we're entering that dominant of wider inclusion where the strange is creeping through the borders at every turn. Because just the other day, I was picking up food at a local restaurant and there are these two cowboy looking, like just good old down local Missouri redneck types you would stereotypically assume through the dress in the region. But I just eavesdropped a little bit and they were talking about like heady crystals and stuff and metaphysical properties of crystals. And I was like, what's going on here? Like,
it's amazing how that's like, I think that's really starting to start to lose its new age tie to it. I think it's becoming a little more mainstream, like a little more accepted that just because you're into crystals doesn't mean you're a nutbag, the way they've kind of portrayed it in culture.
Yeah, they're like a cool and external representation of a particular crystallization of will. I always have them around. My favorite's selenite.
Do you guys remember the Chevrolet trucks commercial?
Beautiful selenite wand.
I have more.
Nice.
Chevrolet trucks like a rock.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Look at that.
Nice.
That's cool.
It's a capacitor.
It probably is a capacitor.
Rave wizard. I used to be a rave wizard. I would go to raves, but like bring crystals and do energy healing on people and all the whole nine.
How old were you?
Mid-20s, early 20s.
And you just were always into this stuff as a kid?
No, it hit me fast. about the time, like when the guy gave me that stone in the story I told, I was the cowboy
yeah.
that Jim gave the moonstone to.
Oh,
You know, and it just went from there.
right. Right. See, that changes people's lives, man. That's pretty
He hit the
cool.
ground running. There was no stopping after that point.
Well, yeah, I mean, selenite and qigong were the two things that helped me feel energy beyond just like a mental conception of things. So I always promote people to, if they have an interest in crystals, to use them however they feel like, you know. I don't think anyone's foolish enough to believe that getting the right rock is going to like be the salve for all the problems they have in the world. But it's, my favorite philosophy is aesthetic beauty based philosophy. Something is cool and beautiful to you and attractive to you, or feels harmonious in your space, then there's absolutely all the reason in the world to allow yourself to accumulate some of that.
Well, it's kind of listening to your higher self, isn't it? Like listening to, like you were talking, excuse me, talking about like kind of like listening to those calls, like giving that guy the stone was.
Speaking of calls, Jenny
It was-
B says in the chat, anyone heard of the concept of using crystals or gemstones as a walkie-talkie?
Oh, I
Like,
have heard of that.
anyone
I
ever
don't
done
know
it?
how you know.
I've done it.
Have you?
So here's how I've done it.
How does that work?
Not like a two-way communication of like we're having a convo. Maybe that's what Jenny's talking about. But I have many times while at festivals or, you know, raves with lots of people where there's a huge crowd and there's someone specific I wanted to see, I will hold one of these up in the air and sing a song about finding that person. And they'll just like within a minute or two walk up out of the blue to exactly where we're standing without knowing we were there, or but they were also like, hey, I just decided to look for you guys, and then boom. So I think you can do it. There's probably levels beyond that because it was pretty haphazard, my attempt, and it worked every time.
How
When
did
you
you?
start collecting rocks, Chance? When is your earliest memory of
Yeah.
having established a rock collection?
I wasn't even
Fetish.
into it until the guy gave me that picture Jasper pocket stone.
Really? Because I've been working at this since like first grade.
Yeah, see, I wasn't. I mean, I may have had a few random rocks here and there, but it wasn't that important to me.
If
But you know
guys
what? My
are-
dad's a
are-
professional treasure hunter, though, so maybe it's in my
Is he
blood.
really? No joke.
Yeah.
Like that's what his profession is?
Has
Yeah,
he found some?
Well, it depends on if you think that old pieces of junk from the Civil War are treasure or not, but they are interesting. They're not
Absolutely.
exactly like, you know, I don't think he has many doubloons.
Chance's father found his son.
Doubloons.
The
He is
greatest
really
treasure
good
of all.
at finding like lost wedding rings and stuff in creeks and rivers. He's got a lot
Really?
of jewelry that's probably valuable in that sense.
Does he
But
use
his
metal?
main focus is looking up relics from the war. It's just fascinating.
Does he use metal detectors?
Yeah.
Well, that's
He's good
a
at gold panning
that's a
too, though.
skill. I've done it. It's tricky.
I think he's psychic about it. I think he like uses his imagination and tries to picture where
Does he really?
like a camp would be, or like he's told me about his process before, and he says he'll go out to a field, he'll read about where troops move from one region to another, and he'll think about what the roads were like between those regions back then, and then he'll travel along the older road and look for like where the shade would be or where the water access would be, and try to like put himself in the shoes of the young men marching and stuff. And
He's
I
a
think
time
to a
traveler.
degree there's some intuition, like psychic ability bringing him to the right spot.
Do you know if he's ever used dowsing rods?
I
For
don't
that?
think not for what he does, but I'm sure he knows about the concept. I just got a cool set of dowsing rods the other day.
They
They're
work.
like L
man.
rods.
I remember even like early 90s, I think. Like it was maybe mid 90s. Nah, anyway, 90s. Some friends of ours lived out in Florence, a little like almost a homestead area, but there was a bunch of loonies, like militia types that lived out there. So like everybody kind of had their own area. And this friend of mine was drilling a well, and he gave me his dowsing rods. He's like, walk just right over there. And I walked over this area, and the two things, just without even, putting any intent. I guess the intent was that I was finding water or something, but I just walked over to this area, and they went, and he goes, stop. And I looked down, and there was a flag of where they'd already found water.
It works. There's
It works
their
every
energy.
time.
There
It works every time.
the water's like arteries under the ground. I had a natural gas line put in at my shop at work, and the city came out to go, like, they spray paint and they locate all the stuff underground before you dig. It's a locate is what they call it. And this lady was, the city van pulls up, and she gets out, and she's like walking around, and she's got dowsing rods in her hands. And I was like, oh, is she dowsing? Like, I gotta find out about this. I went up and talked to her, and I was like, are you witching for water? And she was like, yes. She's like, on my very first day on the job, we had an old timer that he was like just about to retire, and he taught me how to do this. And we have like books, or like, they have records that say where the pipes are under the ground, but they only know sort of like a general idea of where it's at. It's like in the town records. And so the way that they find an exact mark is they douse, at least in my town.
I forgot that my dad actually does sometimes use the dowsing rods, because you can use them to tell where a grave is, where a human being is buried.
Yes, you can.
Which is also mind blowing. I want to actually have an idea to combine dowsing rods with using tuning forks and like tuning the biofield or the aura of somebody, because this just gave me an idea. I bet I could, if I was like in a place that was loud or hard to hear, or maybe if someone was using tuning forks but wasn't feeling like they were easily intuiting the trouble spots that needed more tone, because biofield tuning is about sweeping the forks through the person's field off to the left and right of them, finding spots where there's dissonance in the tone, and then resolving the dissonance in the tone by keeping the fork in that spot and slowly sweeping that stuck or dissonant energy back to the core line of the being to re-merge into the vortex or the chakra, whatever you want to call it. So if you're having trouble finding that spot, you could maybe use a dowsing rod and move through the field, and like with the intention of when you hit a spot that is chunky that needs breaking up, that the rods would, show you. And maybe you could that could be like a training wheels type of approach.
Does a tuning,
you can combine all these things however you need, or you can strip it down, because like Eileen, the tuning fork lady, told me she's been doing it with her voice as much as with forks lately, that someone was requesting that, and she tried it.
Does the tuning fork,
that's kind of like
change
maybe
its
the end goal
tone?
is to not need any tools. What's that? Oh yeah, it does. It
So-
does. In
so
different
like-
parts of, as you move through their field, you will hear different tones.
Because it's getting interference.
Yeah, it might sound. And then the more you get into that listening, which is, I feel like that's the real healer's work in itself.
Well,
Attentive listening.
See, I think
You can tell if it sounds sad, if it sounds angry, if it sounds flat, tired, there's, and then an idea will pop in your head like that goes with that. And you might even see a little flash of what's going on or what happened that they repressed in their memory, or you can kind of tell what year it happened in their life by how far away from the body it is. Like about 6 feet, the edge of their field would be the birth natal area. Halfway through the field would be halfway through their life. Like, think rings of a tree.
Yeah.
So if they're a 30-year-old, 3 feet off the body would be the age of 15, roughly. But people's fields can be a little different, but average is about 6 foot off the body.
And what
You definitely use
this
dowsing
is
rods to find the edge of that. I've done that.
this is from that you learned this from that Eileen? What's
Yeah,
her name?
Eileen Day McCusick,
Yeah, I watched that. Yeah,
plasma
that's
wizard.
yeah, that's fascinating. It's got to be. I always think of it as some cymatics, like like the two.
Oh yeah, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it's got to be, and they've got to. Those cymatics have to be fractals. As the sound goes out, it makes that fractal kind of shape, because as you change a tone in a on a cymatics, so when you look at the shapes that it makes, I think there's some sort of fractalar nature of those tones meeting, and that's where like the the wave becomes tangible or something, healing, energized, healing.
Crystals, whenever they're vibrated or squeezed, they put off electricity, piezoelectricity. So there's a couple things going on. First, you have, like you said, there's the cymatic patterning occurring in the plasma of the body, which the body's plasma is not just. So first, let's define plasma. Plasma is actually, it's more, this is more than one way
Right.
to
Oh,
define it.
yes.
But here's the
Nice.
way that I'm currently looking at plasma. Because yes, it's like a state of matter, but it's such a high energy state of matter. You could almost say that plasma is the flow of energy through a medium, not the medium. Like the way that there's a particle wave duality, you could almost say that the plasma is the wave in the medium,
It's
in a
a
sense.
I was thinking it's a phase of matter, like, there's solid, liquid, gas, and then plasma. So if you get something and you run an electric charge through it and get it really hot, it's like the highest energy of
So
matter.
the thing with that why I kind of have reshaped my definition of plasma is because the water in your cells is technically a plasma, but it's not like super hot gas or something. But there's an electric current running through the water, and the water is a crystalline structure, a uniform structure. And that means that for me, that's why the definition of like the wave through the medium is for me, plasma, because in a super hot gas, a fourth state of matter or whatever, the reason it's like that is because how much energy is in that in that medium of whatever has become a super hot gas. So the cymatic aspect of the tone is putting that plasma medium into a coherent, self-organized, fractally cohesive structure, so that
Yes.
there is free flow of energy between all parts of that fractal, instead of it being all aberrant and out of shape in one part. So you're fractally organizing cymatically your bioplasma, which is the water in your body and the electric field around your body. And at the same time, creating electrical current in that medium through the sound waves vibrating and squeezing on the crystal structure of your bones, of the water itself in your body, all the different crystal things in your body. So it's like two things. It's double action, cymatic action and stimulating electrical action.
It's
It's
reminding
awesome.
me of like a plasma flatulence. Like
I actually
super
received
hot.
a tuning today, and I very few times have ever been tuned by somebody else. So thank you, Haley, for that. My lovely lady, she's in the chat, I think still, but I was just laying down, toning myself with the forks, and she came and did it for me. And I noticed something immediately that I'd witnessed from other people, which was that there would be like twitches, like my face would involuntarily twitch in ways that never ever happen other times. Like I don't just have tics or whatever. And So I noticed these like muscular twitches and jerks that would happen during release moments with the tone running itself all the way out. And I found that very interesting because I was wondering when I was seeing people do those twitches while I did the tuning on them, if those were normal or if it was some involuntary thing happening because of the tones. And I assumed it was because of the tones. And now I experienced it and I was like, yeah, I literally feel things like snapping and jumping out or getting aligned, shocked. It almost is akin to when you get shocked by somebody, but without the jolt part, just like the snapping feeling. I don't know how else to describe it. And you get the same things in Qigong practice too, by the way, where there's just like pops and clicks and electrical, action happening in the body. And it'll feel like the way it feels when you crack your neck or something, but you never moved the joint and made it crack. It just pops. Things like that. That's how I think that you're in a good energy practice, that there's this electrical current is getting hotter or like the blockages are burning out and popping out.
And when you're in that state, you can feel the torsions of your energies. When you're really kind of in that flow, you can actually feel it kind of going in, and how those, like in Thrive, they're talking about healing your chakras through like the egg, like that egg right behind you. It looks like that's kind of your body. That's the torsions of the energy going in and out. And then, like you really kind of feel this when you're in that flow. I do anyway. I don't know if anybody else's experience is like that.
The Taoist secrets of love, cultivating male sexual energy, Montauk Chia talks about.
I haven't read it. I've heard a lot of Montauk Chia quotes.
That's important though, that you guys do that for each other, because my wife and she's allowed me to be my energy healing guinea pig, and it works pretty well.
I've done all kinds of energy work on mine.
Like every single time it does something.
Yeah.
It may not be what you expected, but it's usually what needed to happen.
This has been a super fun conversation. It's getting a little late for me, I hate to say.
Oh, it is. For sure. I'm glad you said something.
Marbles.
After 2 hours, I just start thinking, let's just do it again.
Yeah, I need to eat. But this is a cool hang. Hey, man, it was really good to talk to you, like casually.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. So that's how I treated it. I'm glad that this existed because I wanted, like, you guys are just friends of mine at this point. I want to hang out with you guys. I think I haven't spoken to Jim as much, and he's a little quiet sometimes in here, but I can tell how aligned, especially that we both had a cool crystal life transforming story. But I want to hang out with all you guys again, and we should do a stream to my channel too and just keep the Spider-Verse going. I mean, it's the perfect name fusion already.
Yeah, the Rogue Spider-Verse. We need to use that Telegram more.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a secret exclusive host only Telegram channel between ourselves and Lindsay from Rogue Ways.
The super secret. We need a hand.
Never-ending story.
We need a handshake, guys.
If there's anything people get out of this, read the never-ending story. That's the answer.
We barely touched it. I'm sorry. I love how these conversations go.
Oh no, we talked about it plenty. I don't want to spoil the thing.
Let's do this. I'm gonna do this. Okay. And we can
maybe me and Alan and Lindsay maybe are gonna talk about it exclusively sometime.
Gordy, do you have some bibliomancy to
I do.
Tonight? Of course he does.
Oh, of course I do. Look at this. Time travel for beginners. We time travel to heal ourselves at every juncture of the web, at every point along the way, so that we can bring our full power to bear, propelling our voice into the quadruple torus meeting point where all four dimensions of our bodies unite, transform the universe, past, present, and future. It's
Hey, you know
the
what?
Craziest thing.
You know what I needed out of this so badly? I don't have like positive male brotherhood fellowship in my physical
don't
life
either.
at all
I
right
don't
now.
either.
I don't
That's
have
why
like
I
a
need
group
this.
of guys that I could sit around with and have a conversation like I would want to have in my real physical life. I have some friends that are close, but but not a group of them or that I'm regularly seeing and I have a couple of friends that one-on-one I could have this chat, but there's just no like, a men's fellowship circle, as Alan would want to call it.
Yeah, right.
I appreciate this. Like I want to do this some more. It's
do
good
too.
to know.
The whole reason I do this is to find my accountability partners.
You guys are out there.
Yes.
My Zoom cut out. We repeat that.
It
I
was
said the whole purpose of me joining this conversation has always been just to find my accountability partners.
it's, he's referencing the Promise Keepers, I think, from the Christian subcult. But yeah, this is going
Any
to turn
hot,
into
hot
a
Christian music track recommendations for the rest of the night, Alan?
Rebecca St. James. Wait for
no,
me.
dude, no. The only thing good listening to from that era is like 77's Drowning with Land in Sight. It's the only one. Maybe Plum. I know
like
this
Plum.
too much. I know too much of this
I ca-
garbage. I'm not talking about it anymore. Stop it. Stop. I'm done.
What have I unleashed?
I can log out and listen to Plum for the rest of the
Hey,
night.
Alan, before we go, I want to tell you the number 23 card in the I Ching is splitting apart.
Yes. I'm aware of that.
Impermanence, collapse, deterioration, letting go, eliminating the old, surrender, death. So it's appropriate that I finally remembered to tell you what 23 was in the I Ching, right when we're splitting apart the conversation.
Yeah, my birthday is 12/12, and that adds up to 24. So 23 is like almost my birthday.
My birthday is the 23rd.
Even better.
It's 423.
Mine's
And the-
22nd, and we were talking about 22s earlier.
What?
22nd of what? What month?
Oh, Skull and Boner, 322.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty lucky birthday.
Good one. Yeah.
That's why I got the Aries hat. See, you should have known which 22 it was.
Yeah. Good call. Yeah.
That's my name tag, astrologically. This hat,
Is what?
like in my astrological name tag, like hello, my sign is.
Oh yeah.
Hello,
Yeah.
I made
It's kind of like having, like in the deaf community at ASL, everybody has their own kind of symbol. Is that yours like an Aries thing?
That's the sun sign for me, if tropical astrology is correct.
like a rock.
Yeah, Dodge Ram. That's right.
Dodge Ram. No.
Donald's
Hey.
logo.
Yeah. Chance, thank you for doing this. This was fun. We need to hang out again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
You need to talk to Jim a little more. He's a fascinating dude.
Yeah, I do.
You guys are all fascinating. Definitely.
This group is just filled with like cool brains, just cool spirits, I should say.
I think I
Not
found my
brains.
accountability
You're not brains.
partner.
Hey,
You're cosmic minds, and it's cool to be around.
absolutely. Yeah, you guys
I'm
keep me
into it.
sane.
Me too. Totally.
Oh yeah, spider people that haven't heard me before, innerversepodcast.com is where my stuff is.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chance.
It's okay. I just
So we
remembered,
should be-
we're all hosts here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
They're like, hey, plug your stuff.
It's just habit. It just popped in my mind. Like we're wrapping up, then I'm supposed to say that.
Oh, right. Right. Do that thing
Like
you're
we already have
supposed to
such
do.
strong overlap. People probably already knew that. Who
Yeah.
knows though?
Yeah.
AlanMarcus.com. And then you can link find the link to the Innerverse conversation I had with Chance there at
Oh, there you go.
alamarcus.com.
That was an
Yeah.
awesome one.
Yeah.
We had to stay off camera due to nudity.
That's why I'm showing you my marbles now.
Oh yeah,
My
they weren't
sweaty
on camera
marbles.
last time. That's right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, these are my.
Alan told us
these are
how he
my
found his
sweaty
marbles in that conversation.
Okay, I don't know if anybody can hear me, but I'm frozen and the internet is
We hear you,
dying.
Gordy.
So,
You're
okay. It's-
All right. I'll
Okay.
peace out. I'll be
So,
the first
yeah.
to peace out.
No, I've got to be the one to like give Alan like exhausts me and I get mad and I leave the meeting. This is our shtick. Come on,
Okay.
Alan. Come on, Alan. Tell me something about Rebecca St. James or DC Talk.
I told you about Rebecca.
Hey, bye.
St. James. I was listening to You're the Voice. You're the Voice.
It gets old.
Try and understand it. Make a noise and make it clear. The John Farnham song. That
All
she
right, Jim,
covered.
Alan, I'm out of here. Thanks everyone in the chat for hanging with us too. All the homies, so many, Krista, Stella Moon, Snake Jones, Eric, Ben
Chance
shows up
Gordon.
at the end. He's gonna watch the playback. Ginny B, Haley, per your media.
Chance
I'm missing a
Garden.
few,
What
but-
is your favorite Christian band?
My favorite Christian band? Ooh.
Before Jim
POD.
cuts us off.
Probably POD. Do they count?
Payable
Not
on
really, but-
Deftones.
Okay, cool.
But
Thanks,
I feel like you
guys.
cheated. I feel like I gave you that answer.
No, it's just the most honest to my historical listening to Christian bands. No, I liked Skillet a lot. I was into Skillet for a short time in my life. I'm changing
So
my
was I.
answer. It's better than POD. I liked it more.
I'm also a panhead, so we share that in common.
Righteous.
Righteous
heard
indeed.
Carmen the other day. I never listened to Christian music, but I was happy to start.
Carmen's a good choice.
Yeah.
See you guys. Much
Later.
love.
Thanks
guys
for
are
coming.
awesome.
Garton. Good night, Innerverse. Good night, Spider-Verse. We live in your mind.
We live in your mind. I'm gonna play the outro. Real
We
quick.
can dance it out.
Let's see. Yes.
Egg rolls and spring rolls.
Egg rolls and spring rolls. Let me find the
Ricola.
well, it's kind of visual. Maybe can you play do you have the audio?
I have it. Let me see if I can play it. It's been playing the entire night.
Oh, nice.
I just have to plug it in and unmute it.
The moon on my shirt. Good night, everybody. Love you. Love you. Good night. Bye. We live in your minds.